Hey guys, welcome back to the Empowered Empath. My name is Seraphim, and today I'm talking about the spiritual and energetic significance of the number 2. Very often during spiritual awakening, or simply if you're following a spiritual path, you may find that certain numbers begin to assert themselves into your awareness, and this may include repeating number sequences. So today I'm focusing on the number 2 and what this number means if it's showing up in your life in a significant and noticeable way. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about the energetic and spiritual significance of the number 2 and what this may mean if this number is showing up for you over and over again, perhaps in repeated number sequences or even individually on its own. You may notice this number in all sorts of different places, receipts, account numbers. You might look at the clock every day at 2:22. Perhaps you're seeing 222 or 22 on license plates everywhere you go. This number would be asserting itself to the point where you're noticing it and it seems to be more than coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence, I believe in synchronicity, but certainly these numbers are something that many people experience seeing and noticing more and more of as they go through a spiritual awakening. This is because Spirit is engaging with us, giving us signs, signals, and basically just milestones along the way, letting us know when we're on the right track, when we need to make shifts or changes. And repeating number sequences are one of the ways that we get some clues as to what's going on in our life, what we should be paying attention to. So the number 2 specifically is a highly charged number. It is related to our perception, it's related to magic, and it is related to esoteric and secret knowledge. So it's a number I'm excited to be talking about. It's also associated with my favorite tarot card, the High Priestess, and I will talk a little bit more about that a little later in the video, so hang in there. The number 2 is a highly esoteric number. It's related to the informational nature of light and how we perceive the world. When the number 2 starts showing up for you, it's a reminder from Spirit to pay attention to how we perceive the world and how we can use those perceptions to actually affect the reality. We do this by understanding the universal laws connected to the number 2 and how we can use those laws to influence, manifest, create outcomes, and essentially stay high vibration. The first law governed by the number 2 is the law of polarity, which reminds us that opposites are simply two extremes or two poles of the same thing, and our reality is a dual or polar reality. Now, to give you an example of what I mean, light is one extreme, dark is another. They are measuring essentially the same thing, but these are two extremes or opposite poles of that thing. Love and hate are another example, or hot and cold. The law of polarity tells us that we are able to transmute one thing along its spectrum, but we cannot transmute that into something else entirely. So what does this mean? Essentially, hot can be transmuted into cold, but hot can never be transmuted into dark, right? We're talking about completely different things. However, we can transmute cold to hot and back and forth. Cold is never going to become light or dark or anything other than cold or heat. This is the spectrum that we move along. This is one of the laws through which we can manifest. If we understand how this law works, we can apply it to our own lives. And when 2 starts showing up, ask yourself, what in your life requires transmutation? And are you trying to turn one thing into something else entirely and hitting a wall? This could be why. Spirit may be redirecting you and showing you how to make that transmutation, how to work within the law of polarity to do so. Polarity is also closely related to duality, and duality is a huge part of our paradigm. It's similar to polarity in that duality does highlight the dual nature of reality and how one thing typically has its opposite and how we can move along that spectrum. However, duality speaks more to how these opposites can actually work together. So for example, light requires darkness to give it its texture. Without darkness, we have no shadow. We have no range. Besides which, light is information. Varying degrees of light convey different information, and therefore we require darkness. These aspects actually work together. We wouldn't want to eradicate darkness. Duality also reminds us that everything has a purpose. The things that we desire and the things that we really don't want to have in our lives, all of these things serve a purpose. There's a certain comfort in knowing that and in recognizing that the universe doesn't judge. If the number 2 is showing up in your life, are there aspects of your life that you're struggling with, that you're judging, that you're pushing away, or deciding that don't have value, when perhaps in fact there's a lesson hidden within that circumstance? There's also a comforting reminder in this duality that you in your own body are dual. You are both the infinite soul that came here, the infinite soul that will reincarnate again, and you are this version of yourself, this version of your soul, the person that you are here, which is in some ways a fraction of the whole person, the whole soul that you are. Some call that the oversoul. But essentially, even in our own bodies, we have this dual experience. And it's so ingrained in us, we often forget that. So when 2's showing up, it can be a reminder to acknowledge that dual aspect of self. Go back into soul perspective. If you're struggling with challenges, if you're struggling with aspects of your life, this can be a reminder that you're bigger than just this life and that you can handle these lessons and that you have a lot more help sometimes than you realize in your soul and spirit family that is larger than just the family you have here incarnated in this lifetime. In sacred geometry, 2 is associated with the Vesica Pisces. A Vesica Pisces is created when 2 circles overlap. The Vesica Pisces is the shape in between. This is very similar to a 2-dimensional representation of a lens, the lens in our eye, for example. This is a representation, geometrically, of light. It's a representation of the light code in our reality, and therefore the number 2 is highly associated with how we perceive. Literally, our eyes take in light, our brain then translates that information into the world around us. Light is literally information. That's not a fluffy statement. It's not some spiritual thing people say. Light is literally information from a scientific standpoint, from your brain's standpoint. So considering that light contains all of this information and that the number 2 is associated geometrically with that expression, the number 2 is a highly charged number. This is why it is associated with knowledge. This is why it is associated. Look, I have goosebumps talking about this. The number 2 is associated with the created reality that we all experience and how we experience it. So if the number 2 is coming in for you, it is a reminder that how you perceive the world matters, that your beliefs about the world are going to color your perception, and that if you can influence how you perceive the world, you can influence how the world is projected back to you. The world is truly, your world is truly a reflection of your inner world. The number 2 is a reminder of this. But this is also why the number 2 is related to esoteric learning, knowledge, and the mysteries of the universe, because it's literally associated with the fabric of reality and how we perceive the fabric of reality. Now, on a practical level, 2 also relates to the following aspects. So when it's coming in, consider these aspects, and if one of these rings true, this may be where your message lay from Spirit. Partnerships in our lives, cooperation, collaboration, and this includes our romantic relationships. Balance. Balance is a big one when number 2 is coming in. Examine the aspects of your life to ensure that you are fostering balance in all avenues, be it work-life balance, be it with your mental health, be it with social engagements versus time alone. Where are you out of balance? and how could you be served by bringing those aspects of your life back into balance? Diplomacy. Diplomacy is associated with the number 2 because it has to do with blending differing perspectives, finding the common ground, being a moderating energy or a moderating force. When number 2 is coming in, you may find that you're called upon to be a bit of a mediator in certain situations in your life, or perhaps between people, or that you may have to mediate within your own relationship for that matter. But essentially, this has to do with blending different perspectives, being able to take different perspectives on board, recognizing that just because you have a different perspective or a different way of looking at things, it doesn't invalidate the other person's perspective, and really being able to find that common ground. So the number 2 also calls on you to be diplomatic, find diplomatic solutions, and take a moderating approach to relationships and circumstances in your life. The number 2 is also related to divine timing. It is a highly charged number that is related to being at a crossroads, having important life path decisions to make, and therefore there's some reassurance in trusting in that divine timing and that things come in when we are ready for them. This can help us make decisions when we are sitting at a crossroads or when we have a life path decision that we have to make, and we know that decision is going to affect us for a really long time. Trusting in that divine timing and trusting in your own preparedness to make those decisions can help you move through them. And 2 may be coming in to help give you that reassurance, and for Spirit basically to be letting you know that Spirit's with you, helping you, and that you're ready for this. 2 is associated very much with esoteric knowledge, with secret knowledge, with the knowledge that we require to be our best, to fulfill our unique potential. And so this is also a reassurance that you have what you need, that you have come to this point, this crossroads, this life path decision because you're ready for it, and that the timing is right. On a spiritual level, the number 2, I keep saying, relates to esoteric knowledge and learning. So if 2 is coming in, you may find that this is a time in your life where you are doing a lot of spiritual growth and spiritual learning. You may be reading a lot about spiritual topics. You may be delving into esoteric topics. And so if 2 is coming in when you're doing this, that's just a very natural acknowledgement from Spirit and encouragement from Spirit to continue doing that work. Why, though, is the number 2 associated with magic and esoteric knowledge? In tarot, the number 2 is associated with the card, the High Priestess. She is a keeper of hidden knowledge, esoteric teachings. She is a keeper of confidence. She knows when to speak and when not to speak, and she has a good understanding of the universal laws. She knows that light is information, and she can access this light code information. She can use this to help her manifest. The High Priestess doesn't manifest, though, for her own selfish desires. She seeks to manifest that which is in the highest and best good of all, including herself, of course, but the highest and best good of all. She understands the universal laws and how to move within these laws to enact what many people would consider magic. The High Priestess is also always a student. She understands there is always more to learn, more to grow. We can always go further along our spiral of spiritual and personal development and growth. And she's always engaged in that process of personal examination, self-assessment, and growth. I mentioned before that the number 2 is associated with several of the universal laws. The first I mentioned was polarity. The number 2 is also related to the law of rhythm. All things ebb and flow. And this is a natural part of the created reality. We can ascend vibrationally and move above this ebb and flow to some degree and minimize its effects on our life. But this is a natural aspect of creation, this ebb and this flow. Part of understanding the number 2 being so powerful is recognizing that the 2 is associated with these laws. And when you begin to understand the laws and begin to move within them and work within them, then you can begin to either lessen their impact, move beyond them, use one law to influence another law. And essentially, many people interpret the effects of this as magic because it can seem absolutely transformative. The third law that's governed by the number 2 is the law of cause and effect. All things have a cause. All effects have a cause. Even if you didn't perceive or cannot perceive the cause, that cause exists. So we have 3 universal laws governed by the number 2. And if you can understand how 2 affects our lives and how this dual nature of our universe moves throughout our lives, then you can use one law to influence or affect another law. For example, I mentioned before, you can raise your vibration to ascend above the law of ebb and flow so that you are not quite as affected by the ebbs, which can be very challenging. Okay, that's all I have for you on the number 2. I feel like I've gone on and on about it. I know that this was a bit of a bigger topic. It's not quite so cut and dry. Well, it has to do with these very practical aspects of your life, in some aspects perhaps, but in others, this is a much more ambiguous topic because it does have to do with your spiritual path, your spiritual growth, and that's very unique and personal to all of us. And so if the number 2 is coming in, it's about doing that inner reflection to really find where's that resonating with you? Where does that number belong in the context of what's going on in your life? And that may be in various different places, but duality is the key. Duality is going to be the thread that ties all of those aspects together. So I hope that helps you to determine why this number may be showing up for you. Okay, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, share with your friends. If you'd like to see more of my content, then hit the button to subscribe. You can also visit tarotbyseraphim.ca if you'd like to learn more about me or my practice. And don't forget to pop over to the Empowered Empath on Facebook and join us over there. I will link to that in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Blessings to everyone. I will catch you next time.